God is not fair. The words hang in the air like a thunderclap over a silent valley. If God is all-powerful, why does injustice rule the streets? If he is righteous, why do the violent rise while the faithful fall? If he sees everything, why does he seem to do nothing? More than 26 centuries ago, one man dared to speak these questions aloud. He did not whisper them in shame. He did not hide them behind religious language. He hurled them toward heaven with trembling lips and burning eyes. And heaven answered. This is the story of Habakkuk, a prophet unlike any other, a man who did not begin by preaching to the people, but by wrestling with God, a man whose doubts became scripture, a man whose struggle gave birth to one of the most revolutionary declarations ever written. The righteous shall live by faith. Our story unfolds in the kingdom of Judah in the final decades before the Babylonian invasion. The once glorious nation had rotted from within. The memory of righteous kings had faded, and corruption now flowed through the streets like polluted water. Courtrooms were twisted by bribes. The wealthy crushed the poor without consequence. Violence erupted in marketplaces. Lies were applauded. Truth was mocked. God's law, once treasured, was ignored openly. The temple still stood in Jerusalem. Sacrifices were still offered. Religious language filled the air, but the heart of the nation was far from its God. Isaiah had warned of judgment. Jeremiah wept over the coming disaster. Yet the leaders prospered, and the people hardened their hearts. And Habakkuk watched. He was not blind to sin. He was not indifferent to suffering. Every cry of the oppressed struck his soul. Every unjust verdict in court felt like a blade twisting deeper into his heart. Night after night he prayed, "How long, O Lord?" He had believed the promises. He had trusted the covenant. He knew the stories of Egypt, of the Red Sea, of Sinai's fire. He believed in a God who rescued, who judged, who intervened. But now, violence multiplied, wickedness flourished, the righteous were surrounded. And so Habakkuk did what few dare to do. He brought his confusion directly to God. "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? I cried to you, violence, and you do not save. Why do you make me see iniquity? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing?" This was not polite theology. This was anguish. Habakkuk was not questioning God's existence. He was questioning God's apparent inaction. "Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. The law is paralyzed. Justice never goes forth. The wicked surround the righteous, so justice is twisted." His voice trembled. "Why allow the righteous to be trapped by the wicked? Why let evil go unchecked? Why reveal holiness in Scripture, yet allow corruption in reality?" These are not ancient questions alone. They echo through every generation. And then God spoke, not with gentle reassurance, not with soothing explanations. He answered with something far more shocking. "Look among the nations and see. Be astonished, be utterly amazed, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if you were told." Habakkuk hemmed his breath. God continued, "I am raising up the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, the most feared empire of the age, ruthless, swift, merciless. Their armies moved like wildfire across the earth. Their horses were faster than leopards. Their soldiers laughed at fortified cities. Kings trembled at their approach. They conquered without pity. They deported entire populations. They gloried in their cruelty. They worshipped their own strength. And God said, "I am raising them up." Habakkuk staggered under the weight of it. He had asked God to deal with Judah's corruption. He had cried out for justice, and God's answer was invasion.
Judgment would come not through reform, not through revival, but through a brutal foreign empire. Habakkuk's mind reeled. "Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One?" He clung to what he knew. God is eternal. God is holy. God is pure. Your eyes are too pure to look upon evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. So why do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? The prophet wrestled with the paradox. If Judah was corrupt, Babylon was worse. If God is holy, how can he use a nation even more wicked to judge his own people? Habakkuk pictured humanity like fish in a net, caught, dragged, devoured by Babylon's greed. The conquerors rejoiced in their power. They sacrificed to their own strength. They worshipped weapons and strategy. Will they keep emptying their net? Will they go on destroying nations without mercy? He had moved from questioning God's silence to questioning God's strategy. Yet notice what he did next. He did not walk away. He did not abandon prayer. He climbed the watchtower. "I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me." Like a sentinel scanning the horizon, Habakkuk waited. There is something holy about that waiting. He did not demand immediate answers. He positioned himself to listen. And again, God spoke. "Write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it." This message was not just for Habakkuk, it was for generations yet unborn. For the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens toward the end. It will not lie. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. God introduced a theme that runs through all of Scripture: divine timing. Then came the dividing line of humanity. "See the proud one, his soul is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith." Two kinds of people: the proud, self-reliant, self-exalting, intoxicated with power, and the righteous, those who trust. Not those who are flawless, not those who never question, those who trust. They live not by sight, not by circumstances, not by immediate outcomes, but by faith. Centuries later, the Apostle Paul would quote these words in his letter to the Romans, declaring that justification comes through faith, not works. He would echo them again in Galatians, defending the gospel of grace. The author of Hebrews would use them to describe endurance in suffering. And long after that, a monk named Martin Luther would wrestle with guilt and fear until this very line pierced his heart: "The righteous shall live by faith." Not by striving, not by earning, by trusting. But for Habakkuk, this was not yet church history. It was survival.
God continued, pronouncing woes upon Babylon. "Woe to the one who piles up stolen wealth. Woe to the one who builds his house by unjust gain. Woe to the one who builds a city with bloodshed. Woe to the one who shames others for sport. Woe to the idol maker who says to wood, 'Wake up,' and to lifeless stone, 'Arise.'" Each woe was a verdict. Babylon would not escape justice. Pride would collapse under its own weight. Violence would return upon the violent. And then came a breathtaking promise. The earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Not partially, not regionally, completely. History was not spiraling into chaos, it was moving toward glory. The third chapter of Habakkuk shifts in tone. No more arguments, no more accusations. Now it is a prayer, a hymn. "O Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds. Renew them in our day. In wrath, remember mercy." Habakkuk had not lost sight of judgment, but he now understood mercy within it. He saw a vision of God marching across the earth in splendor. Light burst from his presence. Mountains trembled. The sun and moon stood still at his command.
This was the God who once split the Red Sea, the God who shook Sinai, the God who rescued his anointed. Habakkuk realized something profound. God was not absent. God was advancing. Not always in ways humans expect, not always on timelines humans prefer, but always toward redemption. And then came the most astonishing confession of all. Habakkuk felt it physically, his body trembling, his lips quivering. He knew what was coming: invasion, famine, loss. He described it vividly. Though the fig tree does not blossom, though there are no grapes on the vine, though the olive crop fails, though the fields produce no food, though the sheep vanish from the fold, though the cattle vanish from the stalls. Total collapse. Economic ruin, agricultural devastation, national disaster. Yet, he said, yet, I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. This was not denial, it was defiance. Not defiance against God, but against despair. His joy was no longer anchored to prosperity. His peace was no longer dependent on stability. His hope was no longer tied to visible outcomes. God the Lord is my strength, he declared. He makes my feet like the deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. From complaint to confidence, from confusion to worship. History would unfold exactly as God had said. Babylon would invade in 586 BC. Jerusalem would fall. The temple would burn. The people would be exiled. And decades later, Babylon itself would crumble, overthrown by another empire. Pride would meet its end. But the greater vision stretched far beyond empires. It pointed forward to Bethlehem, to a child born under Roman occupation, to Jesus of Nazareth, who proclaimed a kingdom not built by swords. Through him, the knowledge of God's glory began spreading from Jerusalem to Judea, to Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And one day, the promise will reach its fullness. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Habakkuk began his journey asking, "Where are you, God?" He ended by saying, "You are enough." Perhaps you have asked the same questions he did. Why does injustice thrive? Why do the arrogant prosper? Why does heaven seem silent? Here is the invitation of Habakkuk's story. Bring your questions to God. Stand on the watchtower, wait, trust, and answer this in the comments. When life strips away every visible blessing, would you still choose to rejoice in God? Habakkuk did. He discovered that faith is not the absence of questions. It is the decision to trust God in the middle of them. The righteous shall live by faith. If this story surprised you as much as men, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more stories you won't believe are real.